What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, and in this video we're going to be breaking down the buff, nerf, and reworked tier list, talking about all the characters that are not shining right now and could use some buffs, talking about the characters that are maybe a little bit too powerful and could get nerfed, or characters that could get reworked so that they have a better identity overall. We're going to break it all down, but remember, before we start, this is just my opinion, so before you type never cook again, realize that it's also objectively correct. So I'm doubling down. Just kidding. Smash that like, subscribe, and let's get right in. Now, before we get started, though, I do want to talk about the different sections. So there's buffs, which is just make the character stronger in some way. Nerfs, make the character weaker in some way. Rework means change something fundamental about the character, changing their abilities overall. Quality of life is mainly just making the character feel better in some way, but not making the character stronger. No changes is pretty self-evident. And then delete is for your favorite character. They belong in this tier. So first off, let's talk about Astra. And I do think that Astra is pretty reasonable in the meta right now. Sees some play and some double controller setups. Isn't dominating the meta by any means, but does see substantial play. And I think she's a reasonable pick overall. I don't really think she needs any changes right now because of her pick rate. And there's going to be quite a few characters in the no changes tier, but any of them that you think deserve to be put in another place, definitely let us know. Next off, we do got to talk about Breach, and kind of for similar reasons. Breach is very strong, and I don't really think that you want to change where he's placed right now at all. He sees play on a couple of different maps, is really powerful, especially playing with a proactive character that can take space using his utility. Nothing wrong with him. I don't really think he needs any changes, really. I think he's fundamentally fine. I'm going to put him in the no changes as well. Like I said, it's going to be quite a few characters in the no changes tier. But before we continue, definitely check out SkillCapped.com. We have in-depth guides over many of these agents, breaking down top-level pro players and teaching you exactly what you need to do in order to get better and start to climb, especially this episode. If you really want to make it to your all-time high, definitely check out SkillCap, and with our money-back guarantee, if you don't climb, you don't play, so there's literally no risk. What are you waiting for? Check it out right now down below. And the next character that we do got to talk about is Brimstone, and I think that Brimstone is another character that I think is perfectly fine. He sees pro meta play. He has a positive win rate overall in ranked play. He doesn't really need anything. I know that I'm kind of talking about the first three characters in the no changes tier. These characters don't have anything fundamentally wrong with them. They see substantial play and they're very powerful. I think that Brim is another no changes character, but this actually finally changes now going into Chamber. Chamber has gotten very, very nerfed, of course. He used to be one of the most powerful characters in the game by far. I think he might have been the most powerful character of all time. He's definitely in the top 3 contention, maybe number 1. And after his nerfs, he hasn't been shining nearly as much. He sees a little bit of play very infrequently, maybe 5% pick rate sometimes on some select maps in pro play. But overall, I do think that they could do some buff to the character, whether that's just making a couple of his bits of utility a little bit cheaper. Maybe it's changing some of the teleport timings just slightly, not too much. You don't want to go over the line with this character, but I do think that they have been too heavy-handed with the nerfs of the past, and there's definitely room for them to do some smaller changes to the cost of his abilities, I think, most importantly. So I'm going to put him in buff. I think he deserves a buff, and I think it could be pretty reasonable for his kit. Now, Cypher is a strange one because I think that there is an argument both the powerful sentinels right now, Killjoy and Cypher, could both use nerfs. The rearming trip and, you know, the Killjoy turret, both of these, I mean, Killjoy just got nerfed pretty recently, but she's still very, very strong, and Cypher's very dominant right now as well. And there could be an argument to be made that these sentinels should kind of take a backseat, and some of these other sentinels should see a buff, right? You know, Sage and Chamber and things like that. I don't really think that Cypher has had his time in the sun. You know, he's been good recently, but for the most part, he hasn't been good for many seasons. So I don't really think that there's a rush to change him right now, right? I don't think they need to change him, nerf him right now, even if we stay in like a Cypher meta for, you know, the foreseeable future. Probably you could maybe justify it down the line, but right now I think it's fine that he's meta just because he hasn't been, and you know, it's his time to shine. Now I'm skipping ahead here, going to Killjoy. I think that we've been in a Killjoy meta for far too long. I know Killjoy mains, you know, start typing in the comments, get mad, but yeah, I mean, she's been the best Sentinel by a mile, basically since Chamber, and she's still just been basically ever present. And I don't really think that there should be a character that is meta for that long of a time, especially a character that just gets to consistently have this level of high impact. So yeah, I think that she deserves nerfs, and she deserves nerfs to the point where she stops seeing as much play, and maybe we buff some of the other Sentinels so they see play instead. I think that's fair. And as far as what you're going to specifically nerf, like they just nerfed her FOV range for her turret, I would probably make it so maybe her turret's a bit easier to destroy. And then maybe make some of her abilities a little bit more expensive. I think you could make those justifications, but you let me know down below if you agree and what you would do to see her nerf. Now, Deadlock just got buffed. Deadlock just got buffed, and Deadlock is a lot more powerful than she was before. A lot of her utility, you know, it stretches a lot further, and it lasts longer, and overall the character is much better. But I still don't see the character seeing any pro play apart from specifically Icebox. I think that you could do a couple things with the character. I think you could further buff the character, make her more powerful. You know, if that, you know, you keep buffing those numbers and combine with some nerfs of some other Sentinels, she'll eventually see more play. Or you could fundamentally rework some of her abilities. I think that her abilities can come across as a bit weak overall. So I could see both of those where maybe you change out, you know, maybe some of her abilities like Sonic Sensor and make them a little bit more impactful, add some extra bits of utility to it. That's kind of where I'm aiming. Like, that's where I would go, is to rework her. You could also just straight up buff her. But even after these buffs, she's not quite strong enough to make like a substantial meta mark. I'm gonna put her in the rework tier. I think that that's fair. Next off, we do gotta talk about Fade, and Fade's reasonable, like a perfectly reasonable character. She did get some pretty substantial nerfs a while back, and she just kind of doesn't shine compared to all the other competitive initiators out there right now. I think you could justify a small buff to the character, just a small one, where, you know, abilities are a little bit either they last a little bit longer or they're a little bit cheaper. I think that that would be reasonable. I don't think you need to do anything massive to this character, because I don't really think she's not seeing play because of her power. It has more to do with the fact that there's other more competitive options. So yeah, overall, I'll put her in the buff. Now, in the same vein, we have Gekko, and Gekko is also just a character that isn't seeing play based on other initiators being just more powerful. And you can make him see play automatically just by nerfing those other initiators, but you could also give him some small buffs as well. You know, just some small buffs here and there. Cheapening the price of some of his abilities, I think, would be fine. Overall, I think that his kit is good and it's powerful. It's just not really competing with, you know, characters like Skye and other initiators that just offer a little bit more right now, pound for pound. I would say you could buff it. Pause what I said here about Gekko. I think especially because of the new Skye nerfs that were recently introduced, Gekko is now more competitive of an option. So I think for now, no changes is better than buff for Gekko. But perhaps you disagree even after the Skye nerfs. Let us know in the comments down below. Harbor is another character that there's multiple ways you could go about with changing the character. I think that one of the biggest power gaps in the game right now specifically comes down to Viper being the only line smoker, right? She's the only smoker that can split sites, be that solo controller that like splits breeze and things like that. And Harbor doesn't really do it alone. Like, he can technically, but his utility is not quite there. And then if we talk about combining him with the controller, he could do it, right? You could combine him with other controllers. But if you just buff him straight up, maybe that makes him too powerful when combined with other controllers. So you're in a kind of a little bit of a weird spot. I'm inclined to just buff him though anyways, and just see what happens. See if he can compete with Viper, make his wall last a lot longer, more consistent, more reliable. But perhaps he deserves a rework, some of his abilities to be fundamentally changed in a way that actually gives him the line smoker identity. Or they just keep him in this kind of hybrid state and they introduce a completely new line smoker to the roster that can actually compete with Viper. Because until they do, Viper will be essential in the meta, one of the most picked characters in the game. And I think that what you want in this game is healthy competition between all the roles, right? Or all the characters within a role. You want healthy competition. You don't want it to be super top-heavy dominant like with this or with the duelist role, which we'll talk about in a bit. So yeah, I would say buffs or reworks. I think you could make the justification for either of those things. Let me know down below how you would change things. ISO is, you know, the newest kid on the block. I don't know if we have enough data to fully argue one way or another. You could make the argument to buff him, or you could make the argument to rework him, but I really do think that we just need more time. And also, I don't imagine this is a duelist that will see a lot of meta play. If you wanted him to be strong enough to see pro play, they would have to probably buff him pretty substantially in his state or rework him in some way. Overall, I'm going to put him in no changes for now. Jett is kind of... This is a big topic of conversation between Jett and Raze. These duelists have been basically the only duelists that have been seeing substantial play, and the reason is they can take space on site in a way that other duelists cannot. They dash across, they double satchel across, they clear corners, they gather their space, right? And they're the only duelists that can do this, but it's necessary to take space on point, because if you combine it with initiator engage, you know, a flash, a sonar, and then you dash, double satchel, you can create that space, and they're unique in that. Now, we've nerfed Jett so much, and it doesn't matter. That's the thing. It doesn't matter how much you nerf this character. It doesn't matter how much you nerf Raze. That's not gonna make these characters not see play relative to the other duelists. If you kept on nerfing them, all that's gonna happen is that no one's gonna play duelist. It's not gonna be like, oh, you keep nerfing these characters, the other duelists are gonna see play finally. No. It's these characters do something very unique, and the other duelists just don't do that thing that is needed. So it doesn't matter how much you nerf these characters. It's not going to increase duelist diversity. It's just not going to do it. So I don't think that further nerfing these characters is really the right way to go about it. In fact, I would say that you could probably justify just keeping the characters the same, but then buffing some of the other duelists or changing some of the other duelists so that they can actually do what these duelists do and compete. That's one way to go about it. You know, maybe you want to nerf them fundamentally and like change the entire game meta, but I don't necessarily think that the default cycle of having these aggressive duelists that can break through the stall utility, I think that that's good for the game. I think that overall is healthy for the game. Maybe you disagree. That's up to your personal opinion. So let me know down below what you think. I'm gonna put her in no changes though. KO. I think you could buff KO. He has a really low win rate in ranked play. He basically only sees pro play on Ascent. And I think that you could probably make his flashes a little bit better. Right now, they're really good for setting up lineups on Ascent, but to use them individually for like your own swings and your own plays, not the most reliable thing in the world. I would say that you could most likely buff that. You could also make it so that his knife has a slightly lesser cooldown. Maybe that's too frustrating to play with, but I think that KO deserves it based on the numbers. He deserves a buff in some way. I mean, he has one of the lowest win rates in ranked play by far. It's not even close. So yeah, so I'm putting him in buff. I think that that's reasonable. It's not that he's unplayable. He's just very niche and only really good in pro play on one map, and I don't think that should stay the way it is. Now we're moving on to Neon, and this is kind of the character that I am referring to a lot when I talk about having other duelists compete. Neon can see play, specifically on a map like Fracture combined with a character like Breach, but most of the time she just can't really do what Jett and Raze do, right? You know, they can go on and they can take space, and I think that the reason that Neon can't do that in the same way is a couple of reasons. Number one, her wall doesn't allow her to gather information as she's entering on the site. So it's the way that she's protected, but it also doesn't gather any information. And also the slide is just slower than the dash, slower than the double satchel. So what I would say is I would probably make it so that if she walls, like if you're gonna keep the wall the same, I would probably make it so that if she walls, if an enemy touches either side of the wall or they're close to the wall, if the enemy's close to the wall on the right side, close to the wall on the left side, you can see them through that. I think that would be a pretty cool change. I also would be cool if the enemies cross through it, it would do damage to them. I think that would be cool as well. So like enemies, you know, along the wall, you gather information, you know, and then that allows you to at least clear a certain amount of space. And because you're punishing them if they cross through, it's easy for you to, you know, actually make a play on them. Because I think one of the problems with that is you wall and you run through. It doesn't give you any information about who's on site. It's too easy for the enemies to make a play on you while you're inside your wall as you're running through. Your teammates can't use you at all because you're not gathering information. The wall doesn't really help with team play. It all just doesn't really work, right? It just doesn't really work. So I think that there should be some more fundamental changes around that wall, either changing the entire ability completely or adding some type of information gathering, because it'd be really cool if Neon could have a place among Jett and Raze, taking away some of their pick rates and seeing more play. But in her current state, it just doesn't really work. And I don't think her stun, there's anything wrong with her stun. I think her stun is fine, and there's a lot of skill expression with that stun. But it's really that wall that doesn't really allow the Neon to take the space that she needs to take to really fill that role in a composition. So I'm going to put her in rework right now. And yeah, I think that they should get really creative with that character, rework that ability, and I think she will be a bit better. Omen's one of the best characters in the game right now, but I think he's perfectly fine. There's nothing really overpowered about the character. If you wanted to just do it based on stats, you could say you could maybe justify a nerf, like a slight nerf to maybe his paranoia and things like that, but I don't really think that there's anything fundamentally wrong with the character being meta. I'm gonna put him in no changes. I think that's fine. Phoenix is a weird one because Phoenix has a high win rate in ranked play, but he has no pick rate in pro play, and I don't think that there's a way to buff him and like buff him enough so that he sees pro play but not make him busted in rank. If you wanted to just rework him, you could, and change up him fundamentally and try to get him to see ranked play or pro play, but I think that his identity is fine. It's just he's just not meant for ranked play, or not meant for pro play. He's just meant for ranked play. That's just his identity. I think he's perfectly fine. I'm gonna put him in no changes as well. Raze, similar thing that I said to Jett. I don't think that there's anything fundamentally wrong with her. I think right now she's a bit better than Jett, mainly because of the utility that's seeing play. She's really good at clearing utility and pressuring utility, but I would like to see more healthy competition. Doesn't really have much to do with her though. I'm gonna put her in no changes. She's been nerfed enough. Next up is Reyna, and I think Reyna's kind of the same as Phoenix. You could buff her, but she's fine in ranked as is, and I don't think that she should be super powerful, like busted in ranked, even more so than she already is. I think she's good in ranked. She's not going to see pro play, but that's perfectly fine. I'm going to say no changes, and a lot of these characters are in no changes. A lot of these characters have been fine-tuned. The only characters on this that I think, you know, you could make an argument to change is Cypher. You can make an argument to change Jett. You can make an argument to change Omen, and you can make an argument to change Raze. But I think that they're bare arguments. Like, you could maybe small tweaks. Sage is deserving of a buff. She has a decent win rate in ranked play, but not like phenomenal or anything like that. Just good. In pro play, she's really only going to see Icebox pick rate, but even then, she's not really seeing that much. Like, she won't see that much anymore. There's just too much competition for her spot. She was once like a very, very powerful character in the game, and she's just been nerfed and kept in check. I really do think that you could give her back her full heal. Let her heal her team fully. Let her heal herself fully. I think that's a change that you could actually give back to her. Reasonably give back to her. Her wall, I think the wall and ice are probably fine. Maybe you can make them a little bit cheaper. Perhaps her ultimate maybe a little cheaper. I'm not entirely sure about that one. I do think that her heal could be better, and overall I want to see some more sensible diversity right now. I'm gonna say we buff her. I'm gonna say she deserves a buff. I think having a Sage in the meta again would be really nice, and yeah, so I'm gonna put her up here. Skye, I know that Skye received a nerf pretty recently. I think that she deserves more. She's pound for pound too strong of an initiator right now. She's just almost holding the initiator role hostage, because why would you play a number of other initiators over Skye? It's really hard to justify because of how strong Skye is. I think really just like make her abilities more expensive. I know Skye mains, you're not going to really like this. I really do think that there should be more initiator diversity in the same way that I think there should be more sensitive diversity. I mean, overall, just more diversity in general, I think is good for the game. And right now, you know, the initiator role is being kind of held hostage by Skye more than any other character. So I'm going to say nerf. Now, when I recently recorded this, I actually put Skye in the nerf tier, and then they announced Skye nerf. So now Skye is in the no changes category. I think we need some time to sit on the new nerfs for Skye before we decide what to do with her further. So for now, I think it's no changes, but Skye was on the nerf chopping block, then she did get nerfed again, so we'll have to see where she settles and how her becoming weaker affects the other initiators across the board. Let us know how you feel about the nerfs and how you feel about Skye going into the new patch. Sova is a character that he's strong, and he's seeing quite a bit of play right now, but if Fade was buffed, I think you would see more competition between fade in him. And yeah, overall, you could maybe argue to nerf him slightly, but I really do think that he doesn't need any changes, so I'm gonna put him no changes. Viper, you could nerf Viper. Doesn't really matter how much you nerf Viper. It's not gonna change your fundamental placement for a lot of the reasons we talked about already. I'm gonna say really no changes. Yeah, I don't really think that you could argue with that. I think maybe you could nerf her a little bit if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, it's not gonna change her pick rate. So yeah, I'm gonna put her no changes. Yoru, Yoru is Casey's favorite character, so I'm gonna put him in delete. Just for no other reason. I'm just kidding. No changes. Yoru is perfectly fine. He has a low win rate in low ranks and a high win rate in high ranks. He's a character that naturally progresses in win rate as you get better, and he does see a tiny bit of pro pick play. You could fundamentally change him in a way, or really buff him in a way to see substantial pro play. I don't really think that you want to mess with his identity. I think he's kind of in the sweet spot where he's almost like lightning in a bottle, where he's really just a great example of mastering a character and earning that higher win rate with the character. I don't really think he deserves any fundamental changes, but maybe you disagree. So let me know. This is my list. Nothing in quality of life or delete. But maybe there's a couple of characters that do. If you think there's a character that has some weird finicky interaction that you think could just like feel better with a special setting, let me know, and it would be put in quality of life. But overall, this is where I believe characters should be changed and moved. Never let them cook again. Comment that down below. Thank you so much for coming by, and check out SkillCapped if you want to improve, and we offer a rank improvement money back guarantee. So if you don't climb, you don't pay. Check it out right now down below. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.